Kwe, Ani, Nadia Myre Nindajnikas, Kirgan Zibi Anishinaabe First Nation. Hello, my name is Nadia Myre, and I'm a member of the Algonquin First Nation, Kirgan Zibi. I live in Montreal, and I'm going to talk to you today about my practice, and mostly about an artwork I made for the Canadian Embassy in Paris titled Tree of Shifting Forms. So the embassy made this really lovely publication, and I'll just give you a sneak preview. I'm gonna talk about this work, and I will take you through some of the conception, installation, all right, ideas, all of that. Okay, so let's see what happens next. I'm just going to take a moment to situate my practice, which is focused on something that I like to describe as the transcultural exchange. Looking at historical and contemporary examples of interaction between Indigenous and settler culture. And most often, those examples take the form of objects, or I'm especially interested in the object, and how these have shifts in meaning, and how these shifts affect relationships and understandings between cultures. So the story of this work kind of begins in London. I was traveling there with my son in 2015. We had gone to the Tate Museum in the South Bank and crossed over the Millennium Bridge. And I noticed that the tide was low of the Thames, and Sam and I walked down and found all of these little fragments, these shards of something. I didn't know what they were. We started picking them up. I had a small bag that I put them in, and just collected a couple of handfuls of them and brought them back to Canada. I'm going to show you what that looks like. Here. So, I didn't know what these were. At first I was like, what? Why are there beads in the water? To me they look like tubular beads. They have holes in them, and they're made out of ceramic, that I know, but I couldn't understand, and they're very smooth. They're quite beautiful. Couldn't understand what they were. And so I asked somebody who was doing this activity that the Londoners call mudlarking, which is basically rummaging through the rocks by the shoreline. And she showed me this. And she said it was a pipe, that those fragments were actually from these clay ceramic pipes, tobacco pipes. I was really, really interested about this because tobacco is very, very important to my culture as an Indigenous person. So this one's ceramic, and since then kind of cast it and made some that are out of bronze. Oh, the focus isn't working. Autofocus. Autofocus be damned. All right. So I kind of sat on that for a while. I didn't really know what to do with it. It stayed in my studio. And at a certain point, I saw this call for the Canadian Embassy for a public art. And I decided to propose something, and I was very inspired. And I proposed this for a site that's in a corridor. And basically, all the pieces in the middle there are parts of the shards that I brought back with me. And I created this kind of photographic work. And this is my installation proposal. I didn't get selected, which is fine. But I was really super interested in this idea, and I kind of decided to use this as a body of work. And about the same time, or shortly after, I was invited to go to Banff. And also invited by an architecture firm, WAA, who were putting in a bid to do something with the interior courtyard of the Cultural Embassy. And they needed an artist to work with them. And so they approached me. And at that point, I was super interested in kind of continuing this idea. And one of the things I proposed was to really kind of think about these beads and how they could be used. I call them beads, but sometimes they look like bone, which I absolutely find fascinating, these little articulations around the stem where the bowl and the stem meet. And so somehow proposed the idea of a tree. And while I was in Banff, basically I made this tree, or a tree just like this, with whatever I could find. I think most of it is like wood from the dollar store, and then little bits of branches, and then kind of hot glued in the joints. There, it's a nice example. And I'd met a few people in Banff who helped me kind of turn it into a virtual object, which is what we're seeing on the other screen. And when I came back, I worked with the foundry at Atelier de Bronze to turn it into kind of like a bronze maquette. So this is what I'm holding right now. So this is the original proposal, and what it entailed was kind of making, well, at first I wasn't sure if, you know, we'd go to London and find more of these shards, but I knew I needed a pretty insane amount. So we started making them. I worked with students from the Faculty of Studio Arts in the departments of ceramic and fibers and material practice to kind of make the skins and figure out how the skins would be made. So I like to think of this work as something that's born out of a collaborative effort of many workers. The sculpture itself is consisted of a 15-foot metal structure in the shape of 4-trunked birch tree wrapped in the skin of woven ceramic beads. Along the structural frame in metal, inside the bead skin, are strips of programmed LED lights that fade in and out, and at once showcase the intricacy of the beadwork and also lighting the sculpture from within and making the tree glow softly. I'll show you some pictures of that a little bit later. It's important to understand that each bead in this project was hand-built, dyed, sorted, hand-woven into sections that were joined before and during the installation to form the skin of the tree. And some of the things that happened in making this work is we had to kind of figure out how to make elegant joins. And so we kind of developed what we call the zipper, but basically if you think of a piano hinge where two fragments come together and then there's a piece of metal that's inserted in. And some of the other things we had to understand were how to taper the branches and be able to shape it around irregular forms. So cycling through the slides, that sometimes you'll see like these schematics, and one of them is for a V-shaped bead, another is for something we call the taper bead, and another is for a branch bead. All of the beads were made to mimic the remains of those ceramic clay pipes that I showed you. And I thought that it was a very interesting material as it held a sort of record of cultural exchange and colonial economic movement. I'm attracted to these pipes as markers of exploitation as well as understanding. And using tobacco pipes is a ritual that marks successful, peaceful negotiations and diplomatic relations. And so there's a sort of link for me between the relationships of European colonizers and Native peoples in North America, especially when I think about the embassy as a diplomatic site, which is where the sculpture stands. And you can even think of it as a doubly kind of colonial site of a new world colonial power, which is Canada, situated within an old world colonial entity, which is France. And so the tree serves as an occupation of this site with an Indigenous presence and a reminder of past diplomacy with Indigenous inhabitants of Turtle Island, North America, as well as a hopeful guide for going forward peacefully with an Indigenous presence in mind. I'm going to show you a little bit some of the challenges with this piece. Just trying to see where I'm at here. Ah, there we go. I just happen to have kind of one of the pieces, one of these test pieces that we're talking about. And I just wanted to show you. So this part is kind of straight woven, but then this is actually kind of one branch with another branch. And to get the articulations properly, we have what we call these kind of branching ceramic pieces. Part of it's beaded on this side and part of it's beaded on this side, as well as, finds my camera, these kind of V formations that are kind of compounded in. So it was kind of a feat to figure out how to use bead weaving, which is an indigenous tradition to the Algonquin and Haudenosaunee peoples, to create like a 3D object. And here's like a branch. So basically, the way this works is, it's a little unwieldy, but it does work. Kind of like that. And this piece was just kind of a prototype that we had made to figure out how to do it properly. In total, I think something like 63,000 beads were made. And I'll just show you what the installation in Paris looked like. So, I don't know if you can see my cursor, probably not, but we have the sculptural implantation, l'implantation de la sculpture. And this is the crew in Paris who came about a week before me and my team did. And they put up the structure. Oh yeah. Oh, here we go. There's some more pictures of that. And this is me with Catherine, who's wearing the hat, and Rochelle, who were working all summer with the students at Concordia, and yeah, just kind of master geniuses. So I brought them with me, both quite specialized in weaving and figuring things out. And we also brought a couple of looms with us, knowing that there would be sections that we would have to weave on site, because especially complicated was the inside part where the four trunks kind of meet. And so there's an example of Rochelle and Catherine. And we have Louis Xavier from Atomic 3, who was in charge of programming the light installation for the tree. And you can also see where the tree is situated. It's in the interior courtyard of the Canadian Embassy. And here's an example of what it looks like when it's lit up. This is Rochelle kind of putting the skin around one of the major trunks. And as I explained, basically it's kind of the stainless steel rod that zippers because the construction of the tree is made in such a way that, you know, those two pieces are matching. But, I mean, it looks easy. It really wasn't. These pieces are very heavy, and there was a lot of sewing involved, of sewing the many kind of pieces of skin together. At a certain point, we ran out of material, and had to order some from Canada because I couldn't find it in Paris or Europe. And out of all my experiences, this was probably the most challenging install, in part because we came just 1 week before the embassy was inaugurated by Justin Trudeau. And so beside us, although they're not in these shots, but beside us are like different workers that are, you know, sawing stone, cutting stone, sawing wood, right in our faces. And so one of the things we had to do was alter our schedules so that we would arrive at around 10 and stay late into the night, sometimes leaving only at 3 or 4, maybe even 5 in the morning by the end of the day, the last day, in a mad rush to get it done. This is us just having it finished the night we were finished doing it. And this is our celebration. All the restaurants were closed, so we had some McDo and champagne. And sobering next day. Oh yeah. One of the other things we wanted to do when we were in Paris was get tattoos. And so this is one of the proposals for tattoos, although we didn't have time. So it's still on the bucket list. And yeah, it's still on the bucket list. And I look forward to that one day. What happens now? Nope. Ah, there. These are all the people who were involved in making this work. So basically the architectural team, WAA, and the main project manager for my part was Ziad Haddad. And they also kind of redesigned, you know, the entire courtyard. And then the lighting was provided by Atomic 3, which is Félix Dagenet and Louis-Xavier Gagnon. The architect for the team was Dominique Boulris, engineers, and Sika. Structural fabrication was Pascal Zufo and Dominique Boulris. And for the part that I was in charge of, which was really the kind of the ceramic and the weaving part, I had Rochelle Marcoux as the project manager. And then some of the students from Concordia. We have Danielle, Emily, Kelly, Catherine, Julianne, Megan, Michelle, Sarah Jeanne. Yeah. That's the show. I hope it was interesting. Thank you for watching, and miigwech.